We are in the mud. Your manager's just not good enough, mate.
He's certainly not Harry Potter. Looks more like Dumbledore at the moment.
Are those trophies going to make his legs move quicker? The team in general is not good enough.
Manchester United for the last decade has been the club where great players go to die.
Who knows what they do in training at this point?
So what are we saying now? Is it okay to finish 7th again?
I've got to tell you, I'm a massive Pochettino fan.
This man is delusional.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, a talkSPORT show dedicated to all things Man United. I'm your host, Flex, and we have got a lot to discuss after a miserable afternoon at Old Trafford on Sunday against Liverpool. As always, I'm joined by an expert panel to debate and digest what's been going on at Old Trafford this week. So I'm thrilled to welcome back talkSPORT's chief correspondent, Alex Crook, talkSPORT reporter, Angelina Kelly. Listen, guys, it has been an absolute disaster of a weekend. There's nowhere to hide. I've been dragged through the mud on social media. I had a lot of big things to say during the pre-season and just before. We did here on Inside Devils. Young'un, I had to block him. I had to block him. I had to run and hide. We are in the mud after what happened on Sunday. Let's get straight into it. Crookie, you tried to get away, but we said, no, you have to be part of this as well. We have to hold you accountable as well. Let's get into this, Crookie. You know, you was at the game, I was at the game. We were all at the game, actually. Yeah. How do you unpick what you saw?
Well, first and foremost, I wasn't quite as bullish as you with our predictions. If you remember, I predicted a draw, which means I wasn't confident at all that we were going to win the game. But actually, the nearer we got to kick off, and people were asking me, how's it going to go today? And I was feeling weirdly optimistic because there had been signs of encouragement and progress in those first two matches and in the Community Shield. There were no signs of positivity on Sunday, I've got to say. That was as bad as anything that's been served up under Erik Ten Hag. I thought it was a hideous performance from Manchester United. Yes, they had some moments at 0-0, but were lacking any kind of end product. And from the minute Liverpool scored the disallowed goal, actually, the whole atmosphere turned. Liverpool grew in confidence. And I think in the end, we were fortunate they declared at 3. It could have been 6 or 7 if they fancied going for more goals. So, yeah, really worrying signs. I thought defensively we were a shambles. Casemiro obviously had a meltdown in midfield. I didn't think Xerxes covered himself in any glory. And Marcus Rashford only really started playing when the decision to keep him on and take off Garnacho got booed by the Stretford end. So, yeah, a real backward step, and already the pressure is very much on Erik Ten Hag.
Yeah, the pressure is on, as always, Angelina. If you get poor results, especially off the back of a really poor season last year, how did you see the game and like the negativity and the pressure that seems to be building after 3 games? And we will talk about everything. We will talk about composure and being calm, etc. But in the immediate aftermath,
I was just livid. I think the hardest bit of it for me was what was going on in the stadium. I've been to many a Manchester United game where they've not been great, and it really felt like Erik Ten Hag is losing the fans in the stadium. I have never experienced anything like it. I think they started off really, really strong. As Man United fans do, we understand the assignment, and it just got worse and worse. And those Liverpool fans in that corner, where me and Crookie were sat, it was we were in complete earshot of it. It was horrendous. Yeah. It was from, Ten Hag's at the wheel, always look on the bright side.
That one was the one.
That was rude. Yeah. You'll never walk alone. And it's not a criticism of the United fans because there was nothing to sing for. I was frustrated, like the players on the pitch, I never really saw like a moment where Bruno was, like trying to rally the team or rally the crowd or anything. And the way that those Liverpool fans had a field day at Old Trafford and the way that the fans were leaving, I've been to some pretty bad games and I've never seen that many fans leave, and I don't know about you guys, but for me, that really spoke volumes that the fans have had enough. And we have got some of the loyalist fans in the world. I don't care what anybody says. And I don't blame people for leaving, but I think it was a very big moment. It felt very big. How quiet the fans were, the way the Liverpool fans were, the fact that people were leaving. He is starting to really lose the fans now.
I mean, Crookie touched on it there, that it could have been more had Liverpool not declared. And, you look at the Szoboszlai chance when it should have been 4-0, should have just shot, but almost like I've got the luxury to just try and walk it in, let me try. And then they let us have the ball as well, thought would just pick us off, etc. And I got outside the stadium and I saw a few Liverpool fans. And do you know what? That feeling of apathy, that feeling of like, a few of them actually felt sorry for us.
Yeah.
Actually, I spoke to a Liverpool guy and he said, your manager's just not good enough, mate. That's the first thing he said. Honestly, there was no...
That's even worse.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Normally it's like,
you want to get trolled,
it's threes, it's doing up what Trent was doing, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I expected to walk out because where we sort of do our post-match reactions is not far from where the away buses are in the main car park, out just behind the back of the Trinity. And I usually expect away fans always come out giving it, and it's usually fine. But I really did expect them to sort of be on the front foot, giving. And honestly, this guy was queuing up for some chips, and he looked at me. He said, "Flex," he goes, "Your manager's just not good enough, mate. It's as simple as that." And I almost felt like I didn't know what to say back. Crookie, a huge difference in the quality of the sides. Is that a massive reality check as to where the team actually is?
Yeah, I think you can call it that. And I said on air on Sunday that actually this is not necessarily solely on Ten Hag. It's years of Glazer reign and years of decline in terms of the quality of players available. Having said that, I think when you listen to Arne Slot at the end of the game and he picks Ten Hag's tactics apart live on television within a couple of minutes, that is a real warning sign. As was Ten Hag's demeanour. I don't know if we're going to play the footage, but he's obviously got himself into a row with a newspaper journalist. He got himself into a little bit of a row with me because he questioned the player's mentality. And then when I called him into account and said, "You've just mentioned mentality," he said, "No, I didn't." It just strikes me that he's hitting out now. He's defending himself because of the trophies that he's won. And yes, he's won 2 cup competitions in 2 seasons. But that's not going to hold water for much longer. There needs to be signs of progress in terms of playing style. There needs to be signs of progress in terms of getting closer to these big teams, your Cities, your Liverpools and your Arsenals. And at the moment, we're not seeing that. And you look at Arne Slot, he's been there 3 minutes, and already Liverpool seem to have a different identity than they had under Jurgen Klopp. They haven't conceded a goal yet. They've won every game. Erik Ten Hag's in his 3rd season, and there's an argument to say the club's going backwards still.
Yeah, I hear a lot of what you're saying there, Crookie. In terms of one of the individuals, and it's not to just single out one. There are a lot of poor performances, but the one that obviously did stand out the most, we need to talk about Casemiro. And he was at fault for the first couple of goals, hooked at half-time. Are we seeing potentially the end of his Man United career?
He's got, 2 more seasons? So I don't... Not the end just yet. It'll probably clink on a bit longer. The whole situation is very, very sad. I've got to say, I know that his wife has been posting on social media about all his trophies and everything.
What do you make of that?
It's got nothing... It really annoyed me. It's got nothing to do with anything. Are those trophies going to make his legs move quicker? I don't think they are. The trophies have got nothing to do with it. Nobody denies that Casemiro has been a fantastic footballer for his nation, for Real Madrid. I remember when Ronaldo moved to from Manchester United to Real Madrid, I started watching Real Madrid a lot more. I've lived in Madrid. I went to El Clásicos. I've been to games. I've seen this guy play and what he can do. And he has given fans some amazing memories. And I remember that whole thing of just before he came to United, and was it the Brentford game that we lost 4-0? And he'd apparently texted his agent saying, "Let me fix it," and everything. I think we've spoken about it before, about the things that he's being asked to do. Casemiro at Real Madrid has got Toni Kroos and Luka Modric with him, 2 of the most talented footballers in the world. That makes a massive difference. And Casemiro is not used to having to put in some of the work that he's doing.
Are we letting him down? So tactically, there's been reports from, a really good journalist, Andy Mitten. We all know who he is. Fantastic reporter and journalist, sort of claiming that Casemiro wasn't happy with tactics last season. Is he being exposed by a system? I saw Rio talk on his podcast, sort of saying, listen, and Owen Hargreaves, they're saying, if the environment is right for Casemiro and the setup is right, you can minimise his flaws and extenuate his strengths. And right now in this Man United midfield, not just him, Kobe's being hung out to dry, Bruno, it's not set up right. How much of it is, OK, Casemiro had a stinker and his legs are gone and this, that and the other, versus, well, he's still experienced, set the team up differently?
I get what people are saying with that, but at the same time, we shouldn't be depending on a 32-year-old that we've got to kind of make things work for him, if that makes sense. The end of the day, Casemiro on that pitch was getting the basics wrong. It was embarrassing. You were looking at the way that he was falling over and passing the ball to the wrong people, and it was absolutely horrendous. So I understand what people are saying, and maybe if United had more talented players in certain areas of the pitch, or the setup, the tactics were different, maybe he wouldn't be as bad. But the pass completion was 73%. That's not good enough. At the end of the day, like the basics he was getting wrong. So that's where I would probably disagree with it. But I just think the thing with Manchester United now, it's becoming kind of like Arsenal at the end with Wenger. You're kind of pinning things on certain players. Like there was a lot of hope on, Mesut Ozil. There was a lot of hope on, there were certain players that were coming in and there was so much hope put on them. And with Manchester United, it's like we're pinning things on certain players when really the team in general is not good enough. So I feel a bit sorry for him that a lot is being pinned on Casemiro, but at the same time, he simply was not good enough and he had to come off. And people saying he shouldn't have come off,
his confidence was shot. He had to come off it.
There was no other option.
Even though he's that experienced. I mean, look, we really don't want to have to be fast tracking a youngster who's probably not quite there yet in Toby Collier.
That was bad. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Ten Hag even said it after the game. We needed legs. We needed someone who's going to run around and there are a few fans. I have to say this. There were a few fans in Old Trafford. I don't know if you guys heard it when Toby Collier gave the ball away a couple of times. A few oohs and ahs, and I'm like, this is a young kid who's just come on tour and he's got promising signs. He's been kept back a little bit, like Harry Amas, because they're not quite there yet. But he's had to come on because the senior pro couldn't pass to a red shirt and his confidence was shot. Don't get on his back. That's not what we do at Old Trafford. So I was a little bit disappointed. It wasn't everyone.
I agree with that.
But there was a few.
Like that.
No, I don't like that at all. But just on the Casemiro thing for me, look, we gave the ball away 44 times in that game. And it wasn't just him. No. What happened was when we was actually playing all right in the first 15, 20 minutes, he progressed the ball quite well. So did Bruno. Like, we got into some decent positions, but then we started making bad decisions and forcing turnovers. And that's where it's like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because Erik Ten Hag wants to build up with sort of this 3-1-6 formation, right, with so many players so far forward. As soon as people make mistakes in midfield, as soon as somebody gives the ball away or makes a silly decision, that's where I'm saying that is on the manager, because forget Casemiro, mate. Ugate's supposed to be coming in here. You could have prime Kante. No one single player can plug these type of gaps. It's too big. And the risk versus reward when you don't have players who are absolutely technically sound. We don't have Frankie de Jong. We don't have Luka Modric. We don't have a Toni Kroos. You don't have a Rodri. You don't have high retention ball players. So you've got Bruno who wants to make the difference. You've got Kobe who's still finding his feet. And Casemiro has never been that player. So they're not good at that area of the pitch, and they're also not good at recovery runs. So now Eric's made us have a style that doesn't fit the players we have. There's no surprise that when we go with that 4-4-2 or 4-2-2 or 4-2-4 and be more compact, 2 false nines and bring it in a little bit, we were getting some results. Why? Because we were harder to play through. So I just think he's got a massive problem on his hands now, because we're all hoping Ugarte can come in. Right, and
what if
hit
he's
the
not
ground.
even fit?
And Erik Ten Hag has another thing he said. I'm not Harry Potter. He may take weeks. He may take months. Crookie, I mean, there's a lot for Erik Ten Hag to unpack here, and it's about results, isn't it? But the pressure is intensifying. How do you think he has to react to what's going on? Because Ugarte to come in, he's already said, I'm not Harry Potter. He may need 2 or 3 weeks or months to even get up to speed.
Well, first and foremost, I don't think that was a particularly intelligent choice of phrase, because it gives the media and us as pundits more opportunity to take the mickey out of him, really, because he's certainly not Harry Potter. He looks more like Dumbledore at the moment. So I'm not sure where he came out with that. But I agree with you. I think, pinning all our hopes on Ugarte, he's going to have to be a combination of Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets rolled into one
with Kante
to solve those midfield issues for Manchester United. Honestly, it's there's so much wrong. The third goal epitomised it. It was 4 against 2, that third goal. That simply should not be allowed to be happening. And that is on the manager. And that was one of the things that Ian Ladyman from the Daily Mail put on Ten Hag. When I think, again, Ten Hag tried to turn the conversation back on the journalist and said, well, what problems can you see? I think he was expecting Ian Ladyman to freeze in that moment. Instead, he listed all the problems quite eloquently. So this is a manager who clearly is floundering at the moment. And it's a team lacking in confidence. Casemiro being the prime example of that. Manchester United for the last decade has been the club where great players go to die. And we're seeing that happen with Casemiro at the moment. I agree with Angelina. I think it's really sad, and there's a lot of pressure on youngsters like Collier and Kobbie Mainoo, who he got affected at the weekend, by the way. I'm a big Kobbie Mainoo fan, as you know, but he started giving the ball away and getting caught out of position. So this is a scenario that simply cannot be allowed to continue. And as much as Ten Hag will say, well, we've got new players who need to bed in, for me, there is a fundamental coaching issue. And I don't want to say that, because I've been a big advocate of Ten Hag. I didn't want him to go after the FA Cup final. I didn't see a suitable replacement. But it's becoming difficult for me and other Manchester United fans to keep defending the indefensible. We cannot keep seeing performances like we saw at the weekend, and he expect to keep his job.
Crookie, how much can he be blamed for individual errors, though? Because when I've been speaking to a lot of United fans, and it's brilliant with what we do. You get to really speak to everyone in the fan base. We do it game in, game out. And a lot of reaction I was hearing or receiving after the game was of a lot of what you're saying there. You know, difficult to defend the indefensible. Some people straight up saying, Flex, it's over. He should have gone before. But there were a large part that was saying, listen, players are making individual errors. New signings need to get in and get familiar with everything. Players need to get back fit. And this is a new look Man United that we have to, we can't just throw the towel in after 3 games. But then the pushback is it's not 3 games, it's 3 years. But how much can he be blamed for individual, players are making, like Casemiro, individual errors. Kobbie Mainoo made an individual error that led to all the goals were individual errors.
Yeah, I understand that, but you said it's a new look Manchester United. It's a new look Manchester United with the same old flaws. And I think there is a mentality issue, which is why I leapt on that word when Erik said it and then denied that he'd said it. So I can understand the argument, but he's running out of lives, I think, because as you say, this is not 3 games into a season. United have been in a malaise since the start of last season. They won the FA Cup and everybody thought that was a turning point, but the enthusiasm was quickly punctured away. I think this game at Southampton before the international break is absolutely massive. They haven't got a point yet. I saw them against Brentford at the weekend. They're a back line that are gettable. They make similar errors.
They're trying to play like prime Barcelona, then passing up from the back, trying to do all sorts.
Yeah, they are. So I think United have to win this game. They can't lose to Southampton. If it's 3 defeats from 4 and they've lost to a team who might well end up being one of the whipping boys, then the pressure is going to rain down on Erik Ten Hag. So this next couple of weeks is absolutely crucial. You would expect Agate to play. How fit is he? We won't know, I guess. I actually thought De Ligt did okay to a point, but even he seemed to sort of wilt away in the second half. But I was quite impressed with how he played for the first hour of the game. So there are some positives, but the word you used was apathy. And when you get to 10 minutes from the end of a game against Liverpool, which for me is still the biggest game in English football, and I think everybody associated with the 2 clubs would agree with that, you look to the Stretford end, usually so supportive of their manager and the players in whatever scenario. That was virtually empty 10 minutes before the end of the game, as the Liverpool fans were mocking us as Manchester United supporters.
Yeah.
That is a pretty damning indictment.
Very, very damning. And in terms of, Crookie just spoke about De Ligt there, said he thought he actually did okay. He's played 33 minutes before that game. Xerxes, 87 minutes of football before having to start that game. We all was on the episode last week with Young and saying, start the new guys, get them in there. In hindsight, looking at it, Xerxes did struggle as well. Was that the right decision? Should those guys have been starting?
I just think you have to play them in order to figure out where they're at and what's going on. So for me, I was happy to see that they started. I agree. I was sat next to Crookie. We were talking about it at the time, that De Ligt actually looked quite good. And he's a really big guy as well. I didn't realise. And he looks very promising, in my opinion. Xerxes, the whole thing with him is you look at the positions he plays in and stuff, and it is more of like a creative role than a goal-scoring role. But he had quite a few fumbles. He was nervous, it didn't look good from him. But I stand by what I say. You need to play these players. The only way that they're going to improve is by getting minutes on the pitch, understanding what's working and what's not working, which areas of the game they need to improve. Which, you do some of that in training. I hope they do it in training. Who knows what they do in training at this point? But they need minutes. And this run of games now, I agree with Crookie, like it really is crunch time. But there's about 10 games now where I think the only what you would class as like a big game is against Spurs.
Well, I think there's Villa away in there as
Oh,
well.
sorry, you're right. Yeah, sorry, Villa away, Spurs. Obviously, like some European fixtures, etc.
Yeah. Barnsley in the cup.
But there are a couple of games where you think we need to get these guys up to speed. Well, Ten Hag said that Xerxes was up to speed. You need to get these people up to speed. You need to play them. But I really do think these 10 games, he can't afford to lose more than one, I don't think. And it is really, really worrying. But yeah, keep playing them. They need the minutes.
The substitutions were heavily criticised, Crookie. We all heard the boos ringing out around the stadium when Garnacho was taken off, and more faith shown in Marcus Rashford. He was hooked against Brighton, but was returned to the starting lineup for the Liverpool game. Probably because Ten Hag thought, you know what, it's Liverpool, it's at home. If you're going to do something, you're going to do it now. But like you alluded to earlier in the show, Crookie, you said that he only started playing when, you know, he realised he didn't get taken off and put 2 on a plate for Xerxes after that, but the game was gone. Is Ten Hag showing too much faith in Marcus Rashford now? Is he in danger of spilling over where, you know, it could really backfire for him?
Yeah, because players have to be picked on form. And you go back to the start of last season, Marcus Rashford has shown no form at all. And then you look at Amad Diallo. I think I'm right in saying when he came on in the second half on Sunday, he had more touches in the opposition penalty area in the time he was on the pitch than anybody else in a red shirt. He'd just been named Manchester United's Player of the Month for August. So it was a really harsh decision on him to be dropped. And actually, we were talking to Henry Winter, who was part of our show on Sunday, and he was saying the issue that United have got in that game is they were playing on emotion. And they were, you know, there were moments at the start of the match where actually they were on the front foot and, you know, they were taking the game to Liverpool, but they were sporadic. Liverpool all the way through looked more cohesive in possession. They looked a more organised unit. They looked more of a team. And actually picking Rashford was an emotional decision because, yes, he's got a good goals record against Liverpool as a local boy. He should know what the rivalry means. He was shocking. You know, up until that substitution, and he was lucky to stay on the pitch, all of a sudden it was like something clicked. Then he thought, right, I better do something here because the fans are not happy that I'm still out here and Garnacho's on the bench. And then he put in 2 wonderful balls. That's an application issue and an attitude issue. That isn't an ability issue. Why isn't he taking players on anymore? Why is he always coming inside when actually Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't the best defender? Have a run at him. Make him defend his own goal. It was too easy for Trent Alexander-Arnold. And if Erik Ten Hag has got any gumption, Rashford doesn't start at Southampton. It's Amad and Garnacho.
And the thing is, it's the confidence. I think the reason why Eric's tried to do this is because I think it's going to knock Rashford's confidence even more, which it will. But there comes a point where, again, you have to be picked off merit. And what's happening is, I think last season and a couple of seasons in, Eric had to take on some big personality. So he had to deal with the Ronaldo situation. He'd already taken the Sancho situation. That's another high-profile thing. The Maguire situation, taking the cap. These are big players. These are big situations in the dressing room. And I feel like there was a point where he got to sort of Bruno and Rashford, even though we're really misperforming, and he's gone, I can't take that on because if I do,
enough now. I've took on too much.
But now that's at the detriment of him. Like if you keep playing Rashford and keep putting this faith in him without anything back the other way, without being repaid, it's only going to end one way.
He looks ridiculous.
Exactly. And as for Marcus Rashford, I don't know if is his heart not in it. Is he struggling in terms of the pressure now? Like, is he just not as good as we thought he ever was? Like, it really is puzzling.
It's hard. For me personally at this point, and I get people might not agree with it, I think they need to take him out of the squad completely. I think they genuinely need to
out of the squad completely
at this point because I don't see this working, whatever Ten Hag is trying to do.
What do you mean, what, on loan or just time out the game?
Just have a bit of time out, I think, because obviously still be, training. I'm not saying, jet off on holiday or something. Absolutely not. But I just don't think he should be available for selection.
You think something's wrong there that's bigger than this?
There is clearly. So, I mean, I really believe, and I've probably said this a few times, especially as a Mancunian, I want, and I'm obviously a Man United fan, but I want Marcus Rashford to do well. You ask any Man United fan, I'd be very shocked if there was some that were like, no, don't like him, want him to be rubbish, blah, blah, blah. Everyone is rooting for this guy. It seems like the only person that's not rooting for Marcus Rashford is Marcus Rashford, and I don't understand it, and it is very, very sad to see. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if he's lost the passion, the desire. I don't know if it's just something to do with being coached under Ten Hag, that things aren't really
could
working.
Van Nistelrooy step into this bit here now? He knows what it's like to be a forward at Man United, a striker. The pressure's on you every week. You got to hit the back of the net.
He needs to be with him and do some kind of one-to-one kind of sessions. I don't know what it is, but for me, playing Marcus Rashford, starting him for every game, which is what Ten Hag is doing, it's not helping Ten Hag because Ten Hag looks ridiculous. And it's not helping Marcus Rashford because all it's doing is piling more pressure on him. And it's probably not helping the squad in general because it's like, hang on a minute, Casemiro was clearly terrible. You've took him off. Why is Marcus Rashford getting special treatment?
It's inconsistent,
If I was
isn't it?
Garnacho or Diallo, I'd be sat there like, what is going on here? Why is this guy getting picked before me? What more do I have to do? So I think when you weigh it all up, it's not helping the manager, the player, the team. And I really do think that whatever's going on, they really need to get to the bottom of it. And I would just take him out of it completely. I get there would be a media reaction, but at least then it's not every week talking about it, analysing it. Just get him away from it all and figure it out.
Very interesting thoughts there, because I just see a player who's just void of confidence, void of strong mentality,
and playing him isn't changing that. It's making
exactly
it worse,
by putting him out there, the wake up call from not getting in the England team doesn't seem to have sparked anything.
Like,
I really thought
what
him
is
not
your rock bottom.
exactly, because I thought that was it. I thought, mate, you've had an awful season. You're not on the plane to Europe.
Look at what Jack Grealish did. I mean, we don't know what, maybe Marcus Rashford was training, but you really have seen Jack Grealish speak about it. You've seen how much work
he took himself off social media. He said, I need a break from social media. And I thought, good, perfect, go off. And actually, I'm going to be honest, when I was in America, we watched all the games, we were there up and close, he looked sharp in terms of his fitness. I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't think he applied himself for pre-season, because he was fit, he looked sharp. It was just the finishing touches, the end product, maybe not scoring enough, but he looked sharp. He was going past players. I went, that's interesting. But we've now come to the beginning of the Premier League season, and that mental block still exists. There's something bigger going on, and whether Rashford needs a change of scenery, a change of club, but guess what? Here's the thing. I think his stock has fallen so much, and you look at the state of the economics in the game right now, with so many big clubs not being able to make big moves happen for players on big wages. We've been, stuck with the sins of the past of Manchester United. Yeah. I don't even know where he goes. There isn't even an obvious, Barcelona would have him now, he's fantastic, or Arsenal would take him, would do this, or PSG, that. I'm like, I think some of these teams are going to look, and the longer Rashford plays like this, it isn't even a straightforward thing of, take this guy on 350k a week on a this-year deal, and you'll have to give him something similar.
Who's going to want to take that on? No disrespect, but who is going to want to take on a player who is broken with that baggage? Yeah, it's like, clubs are going to be looking at it thinking, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. But, I don't know, Crookie, if you know, were there offers that even came in for him or anything?
No, there was some loose links for Paris Saint-Germain again, but they were quickly dismissed from the Parisian side. I think Marcus Rashford's entourage were quite busy trying to make that connection. But Flex is right. There's not a market for a player earning in excess of £300,000 a week who isn't doing anything. He doesn't score any goals. He doesn't make any goals. He doesn't scare defenders anymore. We're building up to an England game, a new era, new post-Gareth Southgate era. And we're talking about some of the players who've been left out. James Maddison, does he deserve to be in there? Nobody's mentioned Marcus Rashford in terms of England. Nobody's shocked at all and can make a case for him being in this England squad. And when you think where he was at the World Cup, which wasn't that long ago, and where he is now, I think it's been a very worrying decline. I've said it before. I love what he did off the pitch during the pandemic. I think when he's on form, there's nobody more exciting at Manchester United. But he needs to look in a mirror and ask himself, have I really done myself justice for over a year now? And the answer is no. You can do all the interviews that you want, claiming that you're being victimised in some way. You can put your social media posts out, claiming that you're being unfairly treated as well. The truth is he isn't. If anything, he's been indulged for far too long by Erik Ten Hag, and that might just be Ten Hag's undoing.
Back to the Liverpool game. Mo Salah sits fifth.
Don't give me that stat, Flex.
On the top goal scorers chart at Old Trafford since 2021. I saw Liverpool fans. Obviously, he's got a new celebration, the Mo and Arrow. I've seen. He has a field day against us every time he plays. He's an incredible player. He's a world-class Premier League Hall of Famer now. Is it just a case of like this Liverpool team is just way too good for us to compete against?
You know what? It's a really tough one because you look at last season and we did compete
against them, yeah.
You know, that cup game was absolutely insane. You know, to get the 2 draws as well. I do think that Manchester United can compete because we've proven that we can compete. But I think when you look at this new manager, and Crookie touched on it, with Erik Ten Hag, yeah, Liverpool are simply a better team and we are clearly struggling to beat them this season with this new manager and the little tweaks that he's made. Like Crookie said, for him to sit there and basically just give the game away and just explain, listen, this is what they do, this is how we beat them, this is what, you know, what went wrong and blah, 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 and these are the areas that we exposed. It pains me to say it, but I was so impressed by Arne Slot and the way that he was speaking. And I think...
It's annoying, isn't it? Yeah.
Very annoying. And I think you can't take anything away from Klopp, but I just think like this new era, you saw it with the dugout. And Crookie said it, I remember, about Ten Hag hadn't moved for like 20 minutes. And we were like, he probably don't want to sit in the dugout because he's going to get absolute pelters from behind him. But the way Slot was like, his expressions, his body language, it was like he was at Anfield. It was like he was the home manager and Ten Hag was the away manager. And I just think, unfortunately, when United on their best day, like, we can compete because we have competed. But I do think this new season with this new manager, I really don't think we can now. If that makes sense, I've kind of said they can and they can't.
I know what you're saying. We've got a lot more to talk about in the show. Crookie, before we move it on a little bit, have we got the wrong Dutch manager?
Listen, I really want to keep on backing Ten Hag because, you know, I spent the summer doing that when obviously United were holding this beauty parade, if you like, for a potential new manager. And as I said at the top of the programme, there were some signs of progress and encouragement in the first 3 games, to include the game at Wembley against City. That was all undone at the weekend, and you worry now. The rot has set in. The players again are thinking, well, is this guy really the man for the job? So I agree with Angelina. I think these next few games, I don't think it's as many as 10. I think the next couple of games before the next international break in October are absolutely crucial. If he was to lose at Southampton, I'm struggling to make a case for him surviving.
Pressure is certainly mounting now with the second league loss of the season. Of course, there was going to be a bit of criticism aimed at the manager, Erik Ten Hag, and he made the headlines in his post-match press conference with a prickly response to questions over his tactical performance.
Mistakes that your team made today are the mistakes that they've been making for 2 years. And what makes you confident that it's players that are the problem and not your coaching?
So what do you mean? Tell me then, explain me. Maybe you can explain me which mistakes we make regular.
Well, constantly turning the ball over in your own half, playing the ball out from the back, getting mugged, chances coming on the back of it, counter-attacks when you're outnumbered, giving up endless chances in your own stadium against the team's biggest rivals. With the greatest respect, I've been seeing that for so long now.
You are sure?
Absolutely.
I don't think otherwise you wouldn't win trophies as we did and to beat big opponents. So I'm sorry for you. I have another vision.
You wouldn't, with the greatest respect, you played brilliantly against City in that final. You almost lost to Cambridge in the semi-final. I mean, come on, let's have a realistic view of what happened there.
I think we won after City the most trophies in English football. So I'm sorry for you.
Crookie, that was a tough watch. I mean, you yourself were on the end of a frosty reception from Erik.
We always have to do hard work, but we can't work with our team. We know where we want to go, and we have to keep working on our structures, but also work on the mentality, work on the fitness, because some of our players they have the first start in the season. Hopefully they can play some games for the nations coming weeks, but hopefully also that they stay fit.
Erik, you mentioned mentality a couple of times there. Is there a concern?
Did I? I don't think I didn't mention one time mentality.
You literally just said mentality.
I don't think.
Okay, but do you think there is an issue with the mentality? Because you were in the game until 1-0 and then the players seemed to fade away very quickly.
I think we were in the game, as you say. We make a mistake, but I think the team showed resilience. They kept fighting for each other. They stick together. They still executing the plan, and they dealt with the mistakes they make. And I think that is good from the team. And I think there's also a platform to continue in the season.
There's no denying that Erik is right about the trophies. We can't deny that. But is this a terrible look for the manager after this defeat? And what was your own exchange like?
Yeah, I think it is. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't think he was necessarily expecting Ian Ladyman there from the Mouth to come back with such a comprehensive list of failings. But actually, he didn't really push back against any of them, other than to say that we've won more trophies than City, we've won the FA Cup last season. Both factually correct. But also factually correct is that he oversaw the worst Premier League season in Manchester United's history in terms of a finishing position. So you can't airbrush history. You can have teams and managers who are very good in cup competition but aren't quite able to replicate that in the league. And I would be worried if I was Erik Ten Hag that maybe I'm being pigeonholed as one of those managers. And in terms of me, I mean, he literally questioned the players' mentality. And then when I asked him, because I wanted to speak about mentality anyway, so it was like a bingo light going off in my head when he used the word. And then when I said to him, "You've mentioned mentality there." No, I didn't. And it wasn't 2 minutes early. It was literally 15 seconds. So I think he is coming across as a little bit delusional.
How did you feel from a takeaway from that, Crookie, like towards the manager in terms of, you say, do you feel like you're seeing cracks now? He's starting to buckle under the pressure. And, you know, from a fan perspective for yourself and obviously a journalistic perspective, how are you viewing the man, Erik Ten Hag, now when you're seeing these types of responses?
I'm a little bit saddened by it, I think, probably is the overriding emotion, because I think he's a nice guy. I think he's treated the media largely with respect. I think he's carried himself with great dignity in the face of a lot of criticism, some of it warranted, some of it not. I didn't like some of the questions he was asked after winning the FA Cup. I thought that was a little bit classless from certain people in our industry. But yeah, I think he did look like a man under pressure. I mean, when you've used a word and then you deny it a few seconds later, that isn't a brilliant look. And yes, I take into account the language barrier, but he just looks to me as someone who is looking to come out punching now, and I'm not sure he's punching with any great authority. Yeah,
I mean, for me, and just come to you in a sec, I just feel like I was already irked by his pre-match comments when he said, obviously, after City we're, you know, the most successful team. Again, factually correct, but I think if we're not careful, if he keeps going down that line, he's beginning to normalise being a cup team. And at Manchester United, that's not what we are. That's not acceptable here. Now, I understand in the 6 years before he came, etc., we hadn't won a trophy. You've said that now. We're very grateful for getting the Carabao Cup. We're extremely grateful for getting the FA Cup. These are supposed to be springboards into your bread and butter. And where you're truly judged is what you're doing week in, week out in the league. And what he's basically saying is, well, that doesn't matter because I feel sorry for you. When we get near the end of the season, we will be there for trophies. So what are we saying now? Is it okay to finish 7th again, but we get the Europa League and that gets us into the Champions League? No. Yes, we'll all go to the Europa League final and celebrate if we win it and get into the Champions League. But if we finish 7th again with negative goal difference and getting beat every week, going into games not knowing whether we're going to win, whether we're going to lose, whether we're going to get paced in, it's not good enough. And I think it's a scary situation now. When I look at it as a fan and I'm looking at the manager, it looks uninspiring. And that's the bit that I didn't ever want to start feeling as a Man United fan, because I too, like Crookie, like yourself, like probably a lot of you at home, I want to see Erik succeed. I've said I want to give him the opportunity to fix what went wrong. And 3 games is not giving someone enough time to fix what happened last year. So I get that. But on the road to redemption, mate, you've got to give a bit of buyback, and you can't be out here normalising cup runs.
That whole cup thing is irritating the life out of me. And this is why this man is delusional, because to genuinely sit there and be like, oh, we've won to... Stop using this excuse of, oh, look at these 2 trophies I've got. We've been terrible week in, week out. Those fans are going to those games and leaving disheartened, disappointed, let down. That is not good enough. And it really, really annoys me.
Do you think it's arrogance? Because he's basically saying, I win,
yeah.
I win. He said it at the end of, during the FA Cup vibe when he didn't know if he was
I'll go and win trophies elsewhere.
I mean, it's backing yourself, which is good, but do you think it's coming across borderline arrogant?
Yeah, he's arrogant and he's delusional. That's how he's coming across. And I agree with what both of you have said. The majority of Man United fans, including myself, we want to see him win. We want to see him do well. This isn't like, the Arsenal fans with Unai Emery or the Chelsea fans with Sarri, for example, or like
hounding them out.
Yeah, like we don't hate this guy. Like we genuinely want him to do well because Man United fans are sick of, on this kind of this merry-go-round of managers and we just want stability. Like we just want this team to be stable and to be consistent. So cup games, listen, I'm not taking anything away from the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, but that is one game of football. Obviously, you have games in order to get to the final, but the day of a final is one game of football where you have to show up. And that's great, but there's a whole campaign as well that you've got to think about, and that's what really, really aggravates me. But the Ten Hag thing for me, like I say, everyone backs him. But that game, the manner in which we played, the comments that he's made, the attitude of the players, the fact that I'm convinced that he's losing the fans now. I agree, 3 games. I don't think you can sack him after 3 games. You have to give him a bit of time. But it's like the clock has started ticking now for me. It's like it's the countdown now to him definitely going. And I was always backing him to not go. I'm like, no, we've got to back him.
But you feel it feels like that clock has now started.
It feels like
the end.
when that even that first goal, but let's say from that full-time whistle, it felt like, right, the game's on now. The clock has started ticking as we are now going to get closer and closer to Erik Ten Hag leaving the club. And I never wanted that to happen, but that's how it feels for me.
Crookie, we saw Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher have a heated debate on Sky in the back end of what we saw play out. And basically the discussion was, did Manchester United actually bottle it in terms of not replacing Erik Ten Hag? You saw that Bayern Munich got a new manager. You saw that Liverpool got a new manager, albeit it wasn't their first choices, but they kept sifting through and getting to an eventual place where they went in a different direction, albeit at Liverpool for different reasons, but they still got a new manager. What did you make of that? And what's your take on, because now this is resurfacing. Ineos were trying to look around for a new manager but decided to stay. Do you think that they've bottled it? And actually, like what Jamie Carragher says, we now have a manager that Ineos don't actually want? Or do you see it more from Gary Neville's side, which is, no, they looked around and didn't see anybody that they felt was better and want to see if he can turn it around?
I think the truth is probably somewhere in between the two, to be honest. But the issue they've created by the fact that their search for a potential replacement was so public is that there are people like Jamie Carragher who can come out and say, well, they clearly don't want him there in the first place. They've given him a new contract, but it wasn't really a new contract. They just triggered the option to extend his old one by a year. And if Jamie Carragher is having those kind of conversations, the players in the dressing room will be having those kind of conversations as well. And that's the big issue. I just wonder how much that has undermined Ten Hag's, I think, already fragile relationship with his players, particularly the ones like Marcus Rashford, who haven't necessarily performed for him since the start of last season. Casemiro, who was poor last season, and clearly his wife posting his trophy cabinet on Instagram is sticking 2 fingers up to Erik Ten Hag. So I think they've created a problem. I still come back to the question. It's very easy to sit here and say we want the manager replaced. I'm loath to actually come out and be so definitive about that. But if he does go, who comes in? De Zerbi's in a job now. They didn't fancy Thomas Tuchel. None of us fancy Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter. We spoke on the very first episode we did of this show that Ruud van Nistelrooy looks like a Manchester United manager in waiting. But that's a hell of a step up for him to come into such a pressurised environment.
It could be Ole all over again because the bounce it could give quickly could be literally like that interim vibe with Ole, and we'd all be singing, Van Nistelrooy's at the wheel, etc. But like you said, he might not be ready yet. We might just be getting it by default.
And then you could risk destroying another club legend, much like happened with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. How many times has he been back to Old Trafford since he lost the manager's job?
Angelina, there's well over £500 million spent. New board, new restructure of everything upstairs. Omar Barada, Jason Wilcox, Dan Ashworth, Havel, you name it. So Dave Brailsford. It's a whole new task force. Is it simply just there's too much change that's happened for the better of the club? so we have to just be patient? Or has Ten Hag only got himself to blame because there's over 500 million spent, like I said, on his players?
I think it's a bit of a kind of easy cop-out to be like, oh, there's so much changing. We've wanted this change for a very long time, and these changes are huge enhancements for Manchester United. Some of these names that are coming in are massive and surely will help and not hinder the club. The names that have been brought in, I mean, we've talked about it before, these Ajax players or Eredivisie linked or Dutch or something, there's been some kind of connection to Erik Ten Hag. And as much as people are like, oh, you don't make too much out of it, I'm sorry, but
there's something there.
There's something
His
there.
fingerprints are all over.
If these are players that you have worked with and you've been able to get the best out of, 4 of them are in your starting 11, and you still don't really know what to do with them, that is a massive, massive red flag. I think, yeah, it's easy to say, oh, there's too much changing, blah, blah, blah. He's only got himself to blame at this point. I get that there are certain performances on the pitch and there are certain players that are not doing what they're supposed to do. Totally on board with that. But regarding the signings, especially this season, these are, and Crookie, feel free to tell me if I'm wrong here, you're way more well-versed in this than me, but these seem to be the players that the club have decided. I don't think it's a case of they've told Ten Hag, you've got to have these players. I assume it's a collaboration. It seemed like these were the top of the priority list. They've gone and got the first names that they wanted. So you kind of got everything on your wish list here. A lot of money's been spent. Yes, you have got to give it time, and we do have to be a little bit patient with it. But at the moment, if this continues to crumble, Ten Hag does only have himself to blame.
I agree. I think when you look at what's been bought in, because this is year 3, so we can't. The clock hasn't only just started now. There are some sorts some nuances where you say, okay, you've got to compartmentalise that and this, that, and the other, and give him another chance to fix it. So don't sack him after 3 games of this. But overall, this is his 3rd season.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at the impact he's had over the squad, Onana absolutely wanted him. Look at what Onana's doing. Positionally, awful. Distribution, terrible.
Oh.
That's the main thing we're supposed to have bought him for.
Yeah.
So that's not looking like a hit. You've got Martinez, the butcher. We love him. But that's your guy. He's in there. So you've got what you wanted there. We've now got you Delit. He's playing next to him. We've now got you Mazraoui. He's starting.
3 of your back 4 are players that you've coached before.
And then add your goalkeeper as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Now you're looking at Anthony, which even by his own admission now is not even getting off the bench.
No.
Barely making the match day squad.
There's no point him showing up, really, at this point.
No point. Do you know what I mean? Casemiro came in under his watch. Albeit, I get it, we wanted Frankie de Jong. I get that. But Casemiro was signed under his stewardship. So there's a lot there where you're going, hang on a minute. This is your team. There's no... now we've given you Xerxes, now we've given you Ugarte, that could be Ineos-led, etc., etc. Lenny Yoro, generational opportunity to sign him. Fantastic. I feel like Omar Barado was across that and Dan Ashworth, opportunistic signings, etc., etc. But there's good players that have been signed there, and we're seeing a continuation of the performances. That's only going to fall in one direction, is it not, Crookie? And that's the manager.
Yeah, I take your point. I had done a story actually on my notebook on the talkSPORT website today about the fact that Ten Hag was also keen to re-sign Amrabat, having had a mixed spell last season, did well in the FA Cup final. The rest of his United career, I think, was forgettable. But
and he didn't even use him for half of it. He kept him on the bench.
Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth weren't on board with that. So I think that tells you there is a power shift in terms of recruitment, which Ten Hag, I'm told, is fine with, by the way, because he didn't necessarily want to be so hands-on with recruitment anyway, but previously he just didn't trust the hierarchy above him. But you're right, there are a lot of connections between manager and player with a lot of these signings. And we said last week, he's got no excuses. He's got the structure above him now. They've got rid of Mason Greenwood. They cashed in and sacrificed Jason Sancho because he doesn't get along with Ten Hag. I think that was probably a difficult decision for Ineos because, that was a player the club paid a lot of money for and couldn't, for whatever reason, get the best out of him. So there are no more excuses. There's no Mason Greenwood situation hanging over his head. There's no Jadon Sancho being disruptive in the dressing room. There are 17 players that have left the football club this summer, and the ones that have come in have all been approved by the manager.
Is that a reason why, though, Crook, it might take more time? Is that a reason why, with the 14 outgoings or 17, as you say, is that a reason why he could be like, listen, that's why I just need more time? Like, I know it's difficult, on the pitch is terrible, but just from a Ten Hag perspective, is that why he could be like, I need more time?
Doesn't work like that. Look at Arne Slot. I know it's a different situation. He's inherited a very good team anyway, but he's not taken too long at all to make his mark there. Look at Unai Emery. Took on Steven Gerrard's underperforming team and took them into the Champions League. Eddie Howe did similar at Newcastle with no funds initially. He needs to prove himself. He needs to prove he can get Manchester United fighting back at the top end of the table. And based on what we saw on Sunday, that isn't going to happen anytime soon. But no, I don't think he's going to get time. He's not going to get time from the fans. I don't think he's going to get time in the dressing room. And I wonder how much time he's going to get from the hierarchy.
And the thing is, Ange, just like we as fans, like you said really well earlier, and I really agree with you, that we want to avoid, as Man United fans, this managerial carousel. We've been on it many times. We want to get off that now. We want to just get our teeth into a project. But when you see some of the things we're seeing, like Crookie said earlier, it's trying to defend the indefensible. But a marginal defeat to Brighton, a somewhat expected defeat to Liverpool with the teams. Is this just a premature panic that's setting in after game week 3, or is this justified? Is this? Can you see why this reaction is happening?
I think it's completely justified because, again, this is season 3 of it. And I think the issue is we're not seeing any kind of progression or change or improvements. I do understand that it's 3 games, but you should be, you're playing Fulham, opening game of the Premier League season. You're at home. As much as we were, happy with that game and there were some positives to take from it, in reality, you should be hammering a side like Fulham. Brighton, I get that they are a very, very good
also
club.
A new manager, 31 years of age.
A new manager, a kid is basically running rings round Ten Hag at this point.
Plus the 38-year-old James Milner.
Yeah.
However old he is now.
It's just, and I don't want to take anything away from Brighton because I think they, the club in general is brilliant. This manager is clearly very good. They have a lot of very good players. But again, if you're looking to be in the top 4, if you're competing with, you want to be competing with the likes of Liverpool and City and Arsenal, these games, they shouldn't be going the way that they're going. So, and because it is the 3rd season of it, I get why some people might think, oh, maybe it's a bit premature, but we've been watching this. This is the 3rd season of us watching it now. We're not seeing things change. And maybe, I don't know, like people watching it if you were at the game, but it was the atmosphere of that game for me. It felt very, very pivotal. It was strange. That I can't express that enough. That for me is what got me kind of switched and thinking.
Like a changing of a guard, you thought, oh, it's pivoted here.
The clock started for me then, and that for me is what really, the manner in which we played that game and the way that he's been, like his demeanour, everything, the fans, it's just...
But 8 managers since Fergie's left and nothing has changed. We've been through, and it's that same old argument, isn't it? We've been through managers with great history who have won the top honours and are established in the game. We've gone for younger managers. We've gone for Premier League experienced managers. We've had a club legend that can get a feel-good factor and knows exactly what it takes to succeed here and this, that and the other. Then we've gone for... a young up-and-coming coach in Erik Ten Hag who's achieved quite a bit in the European game and is an aspiring good coach. And now his reputation is now down the pan. Nothing has seemed to have worked.
No, and a lot of that as well is due to the people that are in charge at Man United. I will say about Ruud van Nistelrooy, I think when you look at the kind of the caretakers that we've had before, like, the Michael Carrick, Ollie, he's probably had the most success away from United, I would probably say, out of all of them.
One season at PSV, he was in the
but it's still not enough.
I think he won the cup as well.
It's still not enough. I think it would be very sensational, and for him to, step in and PR-wise, it'd be great.
We'd be losing our minds.
But he's not the answer to the problem. And the more I think about it, the more I do think about somebody like Pochettino, and
Really?
I do.
Crookie?
I know.
Get him out of the United States men's national team. That's where his stock has taken him to at the minute. Angelina, big shout. Go back in for Poch.
Well, he's not signed his contract yet, I
Brilliant.
believe.
Is he waiting, is he?
So,
Oh, right, okay. Thought he was there.
listen, I've got to tell you, I'm a massive Pochettino fan. I saw him at close quarters, what he did at Southampton. You know, players like Luke Shaw played his best football of his career.
His only football.
Under Pochettino at Southampton. and he's not the only one. So, you know, I've been crying out for Pochettino for some time. I wanted him when Ollie was there. I wanted him when Ten Hag came in. So I certainly wouldn't be against it. I know, listen, you tell me that he's a trophy dodger, he doesn't win things. I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he's a brilliant manager. And I think he would bring the feel-good factor back to that dressing room. So, again, I'm not saying fire Ten Hag and get Pochettino in. Yeah. But if you're asking me now, if there is going to be a change of manager, who would you appoint? I'm very much in the Pochettino camp.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't think... I thought that trip had... I thought that bus had gone, that the ship had sailed.
For me, the more I think about it, I get what people are saying about trophies, but this is someone who will commit to a project. And I just think when you look, especially, I guess, with Spurs, like some of those players that were quite young when he arrived, he brought quite a few of them in and kind of brought them up and improved them massively. So it's little things like that for me of like what he was capable of doing. And also, you know, with Spurs, they finished, second under him? They got to a Champions League final. That Spurs team that had nowhere near as much kind of, you know, money and backing as maybe Manchester United would give. I don't know, maybe I'm just becoming a bit delusional.
What did they win? Do you know what? Before Erik came to Man United, when it was that season when we were trying to work out who, I was for Pochettino then. I was like, between him and Pochettino, I don't really mind. I quite like them both.
Yeah.
Now, I see it as like a sloppy seconds again. I think we've got to stay away from like the previous big names. I think we need to go on to the next. Like, Liverpool have just done it with Arne Slot. Like, he's the next. They were looking at Ruben Amorim before that, the next. I'm not saying Fabian Herzler is the choice, but, you know, Brighton have looked at the next. I want the next. Now,
I understand
the
that.
Next, maybe it is Ruud van Nistelrooy, but I think this is why it was so difficult in the climate that it was in this summer, that none of these teams that got new managers got their first choices. I mean, Thomas Tuchel in the summer, I'll be honest, I was like, if I'm going to choose anyone, it's not De Zerbi, it's not Potter, it's not Southgate. I would have Tuchel. The problem with that is
Agreed.
how long does the project last? What happens when he doesn't get a few signers he wants?
But if he was just going to kind of pick us back up
I
and
think
get
he's
that
got
feel-good
standards,
factor.
he's got respect, he knows he's got know-how at the top level of the game, and I like him as a manager. I think he speaks really well. He's got the personality, and I think the players will respect him, and he can get a job. So I wouldn't have minded him. I just think now, I think the worst thing we could do would be to go and try and revive some of these guys where we're like, it didn't work for him at Chelsea. He did okay at Spurs.
I
PSG,
think he's waiting.
Right.
I'm with Crookie. I reckon he's waiting.
Get me Unai Emery out of Villa.
Yeah, I spoke to Pochettino after Soccer Aid.
Oh, that's why then. You've been charmed then.
Basically, we're best mates now. But he even said, I asked him about what's your plan, what's next, and he was saying, I am more than happy to stay in the Premier League. Like, I want my next job. And I was like, really? I was so desperate to be like, would you? But yeah, like he's, you know, maybe we can put a call in with someone. If he's not put pen to paper, I think, Crookie, I think you need to get onto this.
He's on the phone now. Look, he's trying to sort it out. Let us know, guys, were you guys watching at home? Because Pochettino would be a one for the books. I'm not for that. Angelina saying, listen, I could see it. And Crookie wouldn't be against it.
I would prefer to see Ten Hag this not. Yes. I don't want to see him sacked, can I just say?
100%.
But, you know, you never know.
Actually, before we round up the show, let's finish on a little bit of a positive, because in terms of Ten Hag, he is still our manager. I know we've just spoken about some other managers there. Just really quickly, Crookie, and then I'll come to you, Angelina, before we wrap the show. Crookie, what does Ten Hag need to do out of this international break? Who's he got to drop? Who's he got to bring in? What are the tactics? What does he need to do to get hold of this, to save himself and to save us?
Well, I think Agate needs to come into midfield. It's very difficult to see how he repairs that relationship with Casemiro now, because clearly he didn't agree with being taken off at half-time. His wife has told the world that. I think Ahmad has to start. Garnacho comes over to the left-hand side. If that means Rashford is the full guy, then so be it. I didn't think Xerxes particularly covered himself in glory up front, but maybe we should take the opposition.
Don't have anyone else right now
account
as well.
Well, exactly. So I think he probably deserves another crack against Southampton. So yeah, they'd be my changes. Casemiro and Rashford out, and in come Ugarte and Garnacho. Ahmad, I should say. I think Ahmad, he's not the type of character who's going to kick off.
No, definitely.
But he should have been fuming at being left on the bench.
I'm sure he would have been inside. Angelina, very quickly for yourself, do you agree with those changes?
Completely agree. I think for me, I've already said it, but I think Marcus Rashford needs to be taken out of the mix completely. Yeah. I would really like to see, one of the things that we've really liked about Ten Hag is the way that he's brought through this young talent. I would really like to see him put the trust and faith that he puts in Kobbie Mainoo in giving Garnacho and Ahmad a chance to play on either wing with each other. That would be something that I would really like to see. And also just for Ten Hag to take a minute, look in the mirror, realise he's maybe been a little bit delusional, maybe just do a little bit better when he's speaking to the press. And be nicer to Crook, because that was just rude.
I can take it.
Now, before we wrap up this week's show, we're going to end on a much more positive note. We have to after that. Last home game, we sent talkSPORT reporter Harry Durham to pay a visit to the iconic Manchester United institution. That is something you have to do when you go to Old Trafford. And he visited the Lou Macari chip shop. Let's take a look at what he had to see.
Yes, mate, welcome to Old Trafford. I've got a big task on my hands this campaign, and guess what, mate? It's going to be mega. I'm going to go to every single Premier League stadium and find out who has the best match day scran. Pizzas, pies, burgers, chicken and chips, fish and chips. Should we get started? Should we get on with it? Coming up, I'll be going to one of the most famous fish and chip shops in the country. I'll be putting a big old sausage in my mouth. And at the end of the video, I'll be rating the food out of 5, the establishment out of 5, the distance to the ground out of 5. So, this is the plan. I need to get from my house in southwest London to Manchester. How am I going to get to Old Trafford? I could drive all the way from Tooting up to the stadium, which would take me 4 hours and 212 miles. If you're an absolute weirdo, you could walk for 3 days, which will only take you 185 miles to get to the Theatre of Dreams. Or you could just get a 2 and a bit hour train from Euston to Manchester Piccadilly. Bob's your uncle, you know the rest. Right, mate, the journey has begun. Tooting Broadway, or obviously where I live, to Old Trafford. Let's want to hold it right there. Let's just go back to that frame where it says Tooting Broadway there. If you want to find the best curry, do not go for a curry in Brick Lane. Don't do it. The best curries are here in Tooting. Right, sorry about all of that. I'm just really passionate about curries in Tooting. Let's head to the Northern Line. Don't need money, don't need fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. You do, because tube prices are ridiculous. Sort it out. First carriage every single time, because guess what? There are more seats. 31 minutes, 17 stops, £3. I'm never getting back. Arrive at Euston. I didn't want to film anything about the tube ride because obviously you're just going through a dark hole. Important notice, this should not be ignored. Hold the handrail too, otherwise you'll spend the rest of your life in the London Underground. Euston is just head to toe in bloody escalators. Euston Station was an absolute hive for food joints, mate. Burger King, Upper Crust, the pasty shop, for goodness sake. But my favourite food? The bookshop. I can't go in there because I'm late for my train. Let's get to Manchester. The 413 calling at some of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. Nuneaton, Stoke-on-Trent, and of course, sunny Stockport. Here we are, sports fans. Look at this beauty. Avanti Westco has taken me all the way up to Manchester, mate. For any train enthusiasts out there, this one's for you, mate. Hey, that's Wembley, isn't it? That's Wembley. Wembley for my train. On my 2 hour and 20 minute train up to Manchester from London, I was thinking about just one thing. Scran. Food. Dinner. Was Old Trafford going to live up to the hype? Is everything going to be covered in gravy? I do love gravy. Stoke-on-Trent. Everyone please take a minute silence to remember Stoke in the Premier League. We need Stoke back in the Premier League. Potamus, the GOAT when it comes to mascots. Let's bring Rory Delap out of retirement for the long throw-ins. We need the wet, cold and windy Tuesday nights at the Britannia. Oh mate, yeah, but could Messi do it at the Britannia? I don't think he could, mate. If you're going to Stoke in the Championship this season, trust me when I say this, you need to get yourself an oatcake. What is an oatcake, you might ask? It's a pancake which has bacon, ketchup, cheese or brown sauce in it, and I'll tell you this now, it is absolutely delicious. Don't thank me now, thank me later. Now we're in Manchester. Let's do this. Come on now. What's this Scran got to offer? The first one of the season. Old Trafford. I cannot wait. I'm coming for you. A few nice shots outside of Manchester, Piccadilly. You got a Leon, you got a Greggs, you got a Co-op as well if you want a meal deal. It's raining. Why is it always raining up north? It's not going to bring my spirits down, but at the same time, it was sunny in London. Check in at the hotel, see what it's got to offer. A nice little telly, of course, your teas and coffees and your lamps. I was meant to record this when I was actually walking in, but I had to put my bags down because guess what, mate? I completely forgot. And now time for some shut-eye. All ready for Old Trafford tomorrow. Morning, let's go then. That right there is Old Trafford just across the water. It has seen absolutely everything. Trebles, Premier Leagues, some of the best players on planet Earth. Oh yeah, and who could forget the best free kick of all time? Thank you, Sir David. With me being on Manchester United soil, I needed to speak to the fans and find out exactly where has the best match day scran.
Lou Macari's fish and chips.
Lou Macari's chippy is an absolute classic.
Everyone's been saying that. What's so special about it?
I'm telling you right now, you will not get a better portion anywhere else in the Premier League.
What more can you ask for?
Oh, fish and chips.
Special as it gets.
On this fish and chips, what am I ordering? Battered sausage, pie, fish and chips. Am I getting tartar sauce? Am I getting chips and gravy? Am I getting curry sauce?
Come on, gravy. You know the dance.
Everyone goes there. The queues are down the street. There's a bigger queue for the chippy than there is the bar.
The vinegar is so crucial. You want at the bottom to be a little pool of sort of vinegar and little chip bits and batter bits, and then you drink all that out the corner.
Let's go to the chippy and see if it's decent. Lou Macari's fish bar it is then. There's just one problem. Everywhere I look, there is a burger van. Burgers, hot dogs, tea, coffee, cappuccino, hot drinks, cold drinks. Absolutely everything from bacon burgers to bratwurst. Bangers and mash, everything. Chicken there. Oh, mate, the smell of the chicken, the smell of the beef, the smell of the onions, it's making my mouth water. I might have to go and get a chili cheese dog, but do I want to do that? Do I want to get a plain hot dog? No, I do not. Do I want to get a chili dog? No, I need to hold back from this temptation. I need to hold on to Lou Macari's fish bar because I cannot fall at this hurdle already, even though I want this food so badly. Bang, there it is. 4-minute walk from Old Trafford. Just got to go through Matt Busby Way and we are there. This is a history lesson for all of the young people that are watching this video. Yeah, Dad, why is it called Lou Macari's? Who's Lou Macari? Lou Macari was born in Edinburgh all the way back in 1949. He started his career at Celtic before putting on the famous red shirt and representing Manchester United a total of 401 times. Not only is it called Lou Macari's Fish and Chip Shop, he actually owns the gaff. And I bet you didn't know his name is actually Luigi. There it is, mate. There it is. Everyone has recommended it. Lou Macari Fish and Chips. Look how long this line is, mate. It's absolutely mental. It must be worth it. Before I got in the queue and inhaled my fish and chips, I wanted to speak to the punters to find out what they thought of the scran. Look at that. Wowzers. Would you say it's the best fish and chip shop in the land?
Chips in the land.
In the land?
In the land.
The whole world?
Without a question.
You can't come to Old Trafford and not go to Lou Macari's. You know, it's part of the whole cultural phenomenon. You've got to tick it off your list. It's a bucket list for any away football fan, surely.
Do Northerners do fish and chips better than Southerners?
Yeah.
The chips are crispy, lashings of salt and vinegar on there. You cannot go wrong. This is simplicity, perfection.
Do you actually ever have cod or not?
No.
Why?
Don't like fish.
Don't like fish?
Yeah.
But like a fish and chip shop?
Yeah.
Right, it's about 100 heads deep. I'm getting in the queue before kick-off. Going to see what all the fuss is about. What am I going to get? Oh, mate. You've got to get a fish and chips, but at the same time, battered sausage, chips, mushy peas, and also gravy, because we're up north. Bang on. Still in the queue. It's going to be worth the wait. So many people waiting. queuing up for 15 minutes. That's okay. That's okay. The lads have got their chips. I'm so tempted to just go up there and steal it off him, but I'm not a thug. I can't do that. By the way, there is a humongous step going into the chip shop. I just did that for comic relief. Seriously, I'm not embarrassed at all. After 16 minutes, 34 seconds and 68 milliseconds, I made it into Lou Macari. To look at the pictures on the wall, mate. Some iconic moments in Manchester United history. The smell of the batter, the smell of the fry, it was completely overwhelming. I felt like a dog on hot chips. I was in heaven. Cod, right under the lights. Plain sausage, battered sausage, every single pie you can think of, and chips. Oh, those chips look delicious. After fighting my way to the top, it was finally my time to order. What was I going to choose? Was I going to go for a pie? Was I going to go for a cod? Was I going to go for a battered sausage? You bet who I was. One battered sausage, a portion of chips with gravy on top, please. Here is their mate. Traditional chips from a fish and chip shop. I said I had to get fish. I had to get cod, but I didn't. Instead I went for a battered sausage. Doesn't matter when it comes to a fish and chip shop. They said it's the best. I'm going to the best, and I'm having the best. Battered sausage, chips, gravy, taste test, mate. It is drowned. Drowned, I tell you. Chips going everywhere. Drowned in gravy. Oh my God, man. There's one thing that people need to know. If your girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband, grandma, whoever makes thin gravy, they don't deserve to be in your life. I tell you, they don't deserve to be in your life. Gravy needs to be thick. And there's one thing that Northerners do so well, it's gravy. They put gravy on absolutely everything. Hence gravy on chips. Chips and gravy. This is sensational. This isn't Bisto. This is homemade. I know they tasted Bisto. Bisto's nice. But a nice homemade gravy, it's out of the park. And someone from Lou Macari is putting in we just use Bisto. We just use Bisto. But I'll tell you what, chunky chips. Bring the camera back down. Chunky chips. Just underneath there, the battered sausage engulfed in gravy. The thing is as well, salt and vinegar is always a must-have on fish and chips. Let's get it straight. The amount of salt that's in this gravy as well, it's delicious. You can't have too much salt and too much vinegar on a fish and chips. But just look at that. So much care has gone into this. Listen, people might say, oh, fish and chips, it doesn't look that good in a video or in a photo. Actually, it's not aesthetically pleasing. It's not meant to be. It's not meant to be. It's traditional British English food. And yes, the moment you've all been waiting for, the main event where I put the battered sausage in my mouth. He looks satisfied. He looks satisfied with that sausage. Let's get a close-up. Yes, good golden batter. Love it. Do you know what does he think? The gravy is like soaked all the way through. You can barely taste the pork. That's not a problem. The batter is so soggy. It's almost like they have a pig on site. Tastes fresh, tastes delicious. Just like the gravy, homegrown. Lou Macari's, where are you getting your pigs from? That's what I need to know. Because this battered sausage, even though it's so soggy, that state of the art. There we have it then, mate. That was Lou Macari's fish and chip shop for the first one. If you're an away fan and you're going in the Premier League, the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, I was about to say Champions League, but that's not going to happen this season. Make sure you go down there, because I tell you, it's special. These are the ratings. 5 out of 5 for the Scran. Establishment, 5 out of 5. It may be tight, it may be compact, but it's perfect. I love it so much. You get that match day feel. Distance to the ground, 5 out of 5. It is a stone's throw away from Old Trafford. You could probably boot a football from outside the stadium and it could hit the chip shop. Next up, Ipswich, Portman Road. Can't wait.
And there you have it. If you ever visit Old Trafford, that is a match day ritual. You have to get to Lou Macari's chip shop. It's absolutely unbelievable. That's all we've got time for on today's edition of Inside. There was a big thank you to Crookie and Angelina Kelly, and we'll see you all next week.